Hello and welcome to the classic Hollywood movie you should know. I'm Nate Washburn. This week the movie is from 1967, Bonnie and Clyde, starring Warren Beatty, Faye Dunaway, Gene Hackman, Estelle Parsons, Michael Pollard, directed by Arthur Penn. Now the story of Bonnie and Clyde, Warren Beatty plays Clyde Barrow, Faye Dunaway plays Bonnie Parker. They're down and out ruffians who connect, they go on a crime spree that leads to their ultimate demise. Now, Bonnie and Clyde were real people that existed during the early 30s in the Public Enemies era. Now, the reason to watch this movie, the reason to watch Bonnie and Clyde, this is sort of the first modern action drama movie. 1967 is a watershed year for movies. All of a sudden, the youth culture took over and movies got grittier, they got more violent, they got more explicit. And Bonnie and Clyde sort of leads the pack there. This is the first movie that shows a gun shooting and the result of that gun shooting in the same frame. Older movies, you would show the gun, the character would pull the trigger, and then it would cut to the reaction of the person who had been shot. In Bonnie and Clyde, they show a gun going off and in the same frame, a man getting shot in the face. Like it's a very violent movie. The sexual situations are very explicit in the way they handle Bonnie and Clyde's interesting sexual partnership or non-sexual partnership. It's really frank in its depictions of society. Now, the script for this movie had been kicking around for several years, and Warren Beatty got his hands on it, wanted to get it made. No studio wanted it. Warner Brothers finally agreed to make the film. Warren Beatty's a superstar at this point. He'd been around since the early 60s. They wanted to make a movie with Warren Beatty. He wanted to do Bonnie and Clyde. In exchange, Beatty gave up the fee that he normally commanded as a star, and Warner Brothers had such little faith in this movie, they gave Beatty 40% of the gross. He's a producer on this movie. Now, the film was made for $2.5 million. They screened it for Jack Warner. He hated it. The Warner executives hated it, and they released it to very small theaters. They released it to drive-ins. They treated it like a B movie. However, people loved the movie. They started going to it. It started catching fire. The audiences kept coming back and seeing it again. And the critics, the older critics, Bosley Crowther, who wrote for the New York Times, wrote a scathing review. He destroyed it. And yet the newer critics, the younger critics, Roger Ebert, who had just started that year at the Chicago Sun-Times, he writes that Bonnie and Clyde is the first modern classic movie ever made. It got nominated for 10 Academy Awards. Warner Brothers was forced to re-release the movie because people now wanted to see it, and it caught fire. On that budget of $2.5 million, in the U.S., it grossed over $50 million. It grossed over $70 million worldwide. Since it's come out, Warren Beatty has made over $25 million on this movie. Little trivia stuff for you. This movie made Gene Hackman a star. He plays Buck Barrow. He got nominated for Best Supporting Actor. This movie, Bonnie and Clyde, is also Gene Wilder's first movie appearance. He shows up in the scene as the Undertaker, Eugene the Undertaker, who Bonnie and Clyde pick up. It's a really funny little scene. So if you're a fan of action movies, if you like gangster movies, fan of Warren Beatty, Faye Dunaway, Gene Hackman, Gene Wilder, check out Bonnie and Clyde from 1967. It really is a modern classic, a modern masterpiece, and it is this week's classic Hollywood movie you should know. I'm Nate Washburn. Keep watching.